Aloha. I'm Jay Goodman from Talking with a Good Man podcast. This is the Screwtape Letters Lenten series, and this is letter 17. So let's get started. So today's letter 17 theme from Marlon de la Torre's study guide is self-mastery, which is such a common call to all us Christians, right? We want self-mastery, as Paul says, to bruise and buffet our bodies daily in one translation I read, to make us its master, not the sin the master over us. It's a very complicated, lifelong process. Believe me, I can speak from personal failing experience. It's so difficult, though, isn't it? This is the high call, though, of us as Catholics, right? You would think the verse for today would be that one that Paul spoke of in 1 Corinthians 9:27, which says something like, "But I pummel my body and subdue it, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified." But Marlon takes it back a few years from the time of 1 Corinthians, all the way back to Genesis 3, during Adam and Eve, when they lost all self-mastery. It's the first time humans didn't master the self. Genesis 3:12-13, which says, "The man said, 'The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me the fruit of the tree, and I ate.' Then the Lord God said to the woman, 'What is this that you have done?' The woman said, 'The serpent beguiled me, and I ate.'" What a blame shift game of epic proportions, right? So let's get started with today and read letter 17 from the demon Screwtape to his demon nephew Wormwood, who is really messing things up and not paying attention. But hey, what do you expect from a demon, right? What an amazing letter. So with that, I would like to welcome back Jim Beckman for his wonderful commentary on letter 17.
Well, thanks, Jim, for being here. Again, this is the third Friday, I believe, that we're doing this. Can't remember now.
I don't even remember.
There's so many.
What week of Lent is it for you? 100. It's like 100 weeks of Lent.
It's so true. Will it ever end? But yeah, I think it is the third Friday. And Marlon de la Torre's the study guide here. The theme is self-mastery. And the verse he uses is actually, I thought it would be Paul's verse in 1 Corinthians 9 something, like I bruise and buffet my body daily and make me its master. That's what I thought he would use, but it's actually Genesis, going back to the very beginning, 3. The man said, "The woman whom you gave me to be with me, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit of the tree and I ate." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent beguiled me and I ate." And I think, what a loss of self-mastery right out of the gate, you know? So forget Paul. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
It hit me hard when I read that.
Yeah, that's powerful. Well, and we've talked about this before, like how like Satan is so uncreative. You know, like every temptation, every sin just kind of follows the same pattern all the way back to the Garden of Eden, you know. And it's kind of amazing that we're so stupid that we just give in to his tactics, you know, the way that we do. But yeah, letter 17 is one. It's one of my I think one of the better letters because well, I mean, they're all good, but this was just one of my favorites because he does a twist on gluttony that I just think is so insightful, you know, because I think most of us think about gluttony as what he calls the gluttony of excess. That, you know, like I'm only gluttonous if I just eat way more food than I should, or you know, take way more stuff than I really need. But he actually talks about the gluttony of delicacy in a really powerful way, an insightful way, where he actually helps you see that the real sin of gluttony isn't the amount of something, but it's the focus, right? You can end up having your focus all on your stomach or all on your pleasure, or all on your satisfaction. And that can be, more like the delicacy side of things, like he talks about how Glubos and his patient, the mother of this young man, I want my egg cooked just right. I want my tea done just right, and I got to have my little pastries just so. And the whole time she's actually thinking, how great she is for not being gluttonous, but having really simple appetites. But her gluttony's just been transferred to a different focus. It's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. You said it too. It's gluttony and chastity, and just kind of feeding on making that virtue of temperance week in our lives. And I can say I have struggled with this. Like, it's interesting that he correlates hunger and gluttony to essentially chastity, pornography, all that stuff nowadays that we know of, and that those two things feed off each other.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and like he obviously is using a lot of examples for the woman, and then towards the latter half of the letter, he starts to talk about what that looks like for guys. Like that typically men, they wouldn't be as drawn into the delicacy as much as the vanity side of it. And you see this all around you sometimes, and even in ourselves, right? Like I've become a master grill chef, and like I can cook the perfect steak, or like I know my whiskey, and I can like I know all these different intricacies of wine and liquor, and and again, it's not that stuff's wrong, but there is a way that you can be kind of lured into a certain vanity around that stuff, where it just consumes so much of your focus, and then your focus isn't on God, and isn't on relationships and on the people in your life. So it does become a form of gluttony, in a way that's really distracting. Yeah, look at the next line. How can they believe this in the face of notorious lustfulness of sailors and soldiers?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he ends the letter, like coming back to, at least in all of the conversations you and I have had. I just keep picking up on this thread, because it's just through the whole book of keep him in the dark. Keep him from really becoming aware. Keep your man in a condition of false spirituality. Never let him notice the medical aspect. Keep him wondering what pride or lack of faith has delivered him into your hands. So it's just a huge predominant strategy of Satan, is to keep us vague and undefined, and in the dark and in the shadows. This would be like a weird analogy to this, but have you ever been to a nightclub? Like a nightclub. I mean, and sometimes you're in places like that, not doing anything bad. You're just with a bunch of friends and hanging out in a bar or whatever, and listening to music, or there's a live band or something. Well, I've had the experience a couple of times over the years where I've been in a place like that, and then I was spending the night, and was back in the same room the next morning with all the lights on.
Yeah.
And it's just this jarring experience of
Totally different.
What in the world? Like last night, with hardly any lights on at all, and flashing lights and colored lights and flickers and loud music and full of people, like it just, there was something appealing about it. It looked like such a fun place to be in. And then you're back the next morning, and all the lights are on, like bright fluorescent lights. And you just see dirt and garbage and spilt beer and puke and just, like with all the lights on, you see everything. And it's like literally the most undesirable place on the planet.
Yeah.
Get me out of this room like as fast as you can. I can't believe that I actually wanted to be here last night. I think that's a little bit of what C.S. Lewis is talking about. Is Satan loves to keep us in these places in our life where we're kind of in the bar scene, but with the lights down low and colored lights up on the stage and loud music playing where you really can't even pay attention to the person right next to you. And it just keeps us in this environment where we're so really unaware of what's really the condition of the place that we are, because everything's just hidden.
Yeah.
And camouflaged in a way. And were somebody to turn all the fluorescent lights on, you would see things for what they really are. But no one would ever do that in that kind of moment. So
Yeah, it's almost I don't know if you saw the one with my wife. I had her on, and she kind of alluded to the same thing, that hell is this, and I think we've talked about it too. Yeah, I know we have. We've talked about it too, where hell is this huge wide highway, like that song by what, AC/DC, I don't know who sings it, Highway to Hell.
yeah.
And it's this huge highway, but it's very, like it says in letter 12, it's the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. Everything's hidden and confusing, and just, where am I? What is this? And there's no direction. But it's all loud and crazy, and you don't see all the things that would take you to that tiny little path to heaven off to the left.
Yeah.
And that we could go to hell and not even know that we're on our way to hell if we're not too careful.
Right.
We're so tricked, and things are camouflaged, like you said.
I forget who it was. One of the saints, like Catherine of Siena or Teresa of Avila. So somebody has a vision of that wide road to hell, and like everybody's just going down this wide path, and there's all these neon lights and signs and everything, luring them, but they're just going off this path into just utter destruction, and then there's this little small path that leads up this hill, and it looks like a rough climb, and there's just a handful of people trying to climb that, and there's hundreds and hundreds of others going down the wide path to destruction, and that's a little bit of the reality of things, right?
Yeah, it's very sobering, and kind of puts me in my place, like I've said a few times in letter 17. And then it says, if you go back to the second paragraph, I mean, in my book it's the second paragraph, but the real value of the quiet, unobtrusive work which Glubos has been doing for years on this old woman. And I think that's what it is. He's quiet and unobtrusive, just not jumping out of the closet like, I'm a demon. He's very secret about his work with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has this old woman well in hand.
Yeah. And it took years. It didn't happen in days or hours. It took a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then that's even, like you said, the quickest road to hell, which he says earlier, is a smooth and gradual one. Not quick turns, not you don't have to tempt them with a prostitute or murder when cards will do the trick.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
good
that
stuff.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, and I mean, exercise is good. I mean, it really is good for you. And St. John Paul II, he exercised all the time. Was when he was younger, and yeah, Blessed Forsati, he was big in, like you said, hiking and exercising and just climbing, and So it is good for us, and we should, like Paul says, in the beginning I mentioned, bruise and buffet our body daily, make it our slave.
Yeah, that's typically how I look at exercise. I'm not trying to get into like perfect shape or sculpt my body or getting into that kind of stuff, but I'm actually all dressed in my athletic stuff because I'm going to the gym as soon as I get off this call.
Yeah.
But I actually look at exercise as a form of suffering.
Yeah.
I look at it as penance and asceticism because I don't really like it, but I know it's good for my heart, it's good for my circulatory system, it's good for my health. And I find actually that it helps me in almost every area of my life. Like I sleep better when I'm exercising. I function better at work when I'm exercising regularly. I think more clearly. I'm not as moody and temperamental with my kids and in my family when I'm exercising. So to me, like to go run 3 miles or to go to the gym and do, a circuit of exercises, I like pray as I'm walking into the gym and say, okay, Lord, I'm offering up the next 45, 50 minutes as suffering because
Yeah.
I don't really enjoy this, but I know I need to do this and it's good for me. So, and then sometimes I'll pray the rosary while I'm working out or listen to the chaplet of divine mercy, being prayed as I'm working out or whatever. My kids make fun of me all the time because they're like, how can you listen to like music like that? Like you need to like heavy metal rock music to get you really pumped up. And it's like, I'm not trying to pump up. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to offer up. So
You're not trying to pump up like Arnold.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if you had ever looked into this. Matt Fradd did a book on called Porn, I think, and he did a lot of research. And I've personally read about this where there's a lot of correlation between eating, pornography, and exercise, and that they can use exercise as an outlet. Is what I'm trying to say, to get the same kinds of highs that they would get when they look at pornography, but in a safe, holy environment. Oxytocin, dopamine,
Yeah,
all those
exactly.
chemicals that are released. Yeah, when you exercise it's just harder. And like you said, it's a form of suffering to get to that point, which takes roughly 15 to 20 minutes of hard exercise to get those chemicals to release. And then you won't want to do those other things that are sinful. And
Right. Yeah, it helps balance things out. Well, you brought that up that was the theme with today's letter was self-mastery. It's kind of interesting, and again, we can't get into all this now at the end of the
yeah,
conversation today, but like the human vocation, the way the church defines what is the human vocation, well, it's to love.
yeah,
So we actually have constitutional documents in the church that talk about what is the vocation of the lay faithful. Well, it's to love. Well, how do you actually develop the capacity to love? Uh, it's almost like a math equation, actually. Like they say self-knowledge plus self-mastery equals self-donation.
yeah,
So if you don't know yourself, and if you haven't mastered yourself, you actually don't have any capacity to give yourself away to others. So this is what the whole spiritual life is all about, and what discipleship is all about is growing in ever increasing awareness about yourself. Learn yourself, right? Like some spiritual writers throughout history would say, know thyself. You got to understand your weaknesses, you got to understand your poverties, you got to understand your woundedness. The more and more that you understand those things aren't going to be driving, like we talked earlier about the different parts of the brain, but like uh, sometimes emotional things inside us are driving choices in our actions. And it's really all because we just have never taken the time to really understand ourselves
yeah,
and be able to say no to that drive. Like, no, I'm not going to do that because I think in the back of my emotions, I think that this thing, porn or overeating or, gluttonous stuff or whatever, like I somehow think that that's going to actually meet this need, but it's actually not going to meet the need. It never does. And it's like a doom loop that I just keep repeating over and over and over again. And really all it does is just creates more shame that then 2 or 3 days from now leads me back to the same choice, looking for some type of remedy for the shame, right? Like, know thyself. Like, you have to do that first, because once you know that that's the loop you're in, then you can engage your will. The self-knowledge informs the intellect, but the intellect fuels the will. And once you have the knowledge, the self-knowledge, then your will can be engaged to make the choice. I'm not going to choose that because I know that it actually isn't really going to give me what I'm looking for. Those two things, self-knowledge and then self-mastery, actually develop in us a greater and greater capacity for self-donation, which is what our whole human vocation is all about. So it's actually very powerful, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a good way to kind of wrap up that letter, is just with that mathematical spiritual equation,
Yeah.
to fight Screwtape and Glubose and Wormwood and just knock it all out.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Well,
Thank
great
you,
being
Jim.
with you again today. I'm going to go to the gym.
Yeah, good. I'm gonna go work out in a little bit too. I just dressed up, a little bit for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were wearing a nice button-up shirt last time, so I thought, oh, it's Friday. I'll wear an Aloha shirt.
Well, yeah, I actually got tied up at that thing that I was doing at the high school and then forgot about this. And then came home and was getting ready to go to the gym. And then you texted me. I was like, oh, shoot. Well, I'm not going to go change my clothes again. I'm just going to do it in my gym clothes. So
That's awesome.
cool.
Well, thanks,
Great,
Jim.
great being with everybody. God bless you guys.
Yeah, I'll see you, Jim. Thank you.
All right. God bless.